Hello, welcome to this session of Node.js certification training. Our topic for this session is building Node.js applications using ES6. The topics for today are history of ES6, EcmaScript variables, differences between ES5 and ES6, set objects, async await, transpilation in Node.js, and API using ES6. Till now, we have learned how to develop applications using ES5. Now let us see how to develop applications using the updated version of JavaScript, that is ES6. So what is ES and the difference between ES5 and ES6? ES, which stands for EcmaScript, is a standard for scripting languages like JavaScript. At present, many browsers support only ES5 version, but an updated version ES6 with better features is available, which offers ease for developers to code. ES variables. Variables are defined spaces in memory used to store values in program. So variables are a very common thing in most of the programming languages. JavaScript supports dynamic typing. This means that a JavaScript variable can hold value of any data type. The majorly used ECMAScript variable types are var, let, and const. You must have used var till now. There is a possibility you might not have seen let and const till now. That's okay. So in JavaScript, you don't say int x equal to 1 like any other language like C, C++, C#, or Java. You just say var x, and then x can hold any kind of value: undefined, null, boolean, number, string, object, array, anything. So it's called dynamic typing, but then again it's a double-edged sword. If you're not careful, you can get into trouble. Your application might not work as expected. Debugging might be hard. You need to be careful. So till ES5 we had var only. In ES6 we have var, let, and const. So ES5 makes use of var keyword, and it was the only way to declare the variables in JavaScript, but it had certain issues like it has a function scope, global or local scope. That is, if you want to restrict the access of variables within the functions, it should be defined inside the function, otherwise it will belong to the global scope. So I'll give you an example of what var means. So let's say you have a function f1. Inside the function f1 we have another function declared f2, or let's say f outer and f inner. That's easier to understand. F outer and f inner, we have two functions. F inner is inside f outer. In the f outer, in the first line we say var x. X is a variable declared in the f outer that will be available to f inner in any case, if you want it or not. Let's say you don't want the value of f outer to be used inside f inner. For that, what you'll have to do is, in the f inner, declare that variable again, say var x again, and then it will be redeclared in the inner function as its own variable, and the one that is in the outer function won't be accessible. So here variables can be declared more than one time, and their values can be reassigned anytime in the same project. Yes, that is also true with var variables. In fact, I'll give you another example, which is for the global scope. Let's say you open the console in your Chrome browser and you just say var x equal to 10. It means you declared a variable x, gave it the value 10, but you did not do it inside any function scope. You just wrote it in the console. When you are not inside any function scope, automatically you are in a global scope. So once you have declared that variable x equal to 10, try this. Try window.x. You would notice when a variable is not inside any function scope, a var variable, and declared in the global scope, it automatically becomes a property in the global window object. Try it out. This leads to wrap the code in a function whenever we need to create a new scope. So here is an example. Declaring variable globally, var x equal to 10. Declaring variable locally, so inside the function test we have again declared x equal to 100. So inside the function test the value would be 100, and value of x before declaration of function, that is 10. Then inside the function the value is 100. Now ES6 introduced two keywords for variable declaration, let and const, which are not local and global scope, but they are block scope. So to make you understand, in the for loops you write var I equal to 0, I less than length or something like that, and I plus plus. But in the for loop, when you say for where I equal to 0, I is not limited to the for loop's scope. I is in the scope of the function inside which you have written the for loop. Another example that's given over here, it's of if else. Inside if, let's say you write where x equal to 1, it doesn't mean the scope of that variable x is only the if block. Whatever function inside which this if is, if it's a var variable, it will take the function scope, not this. But on the other hand, let takes the block scope. Simply understand whichever curly braces there are, no matter if they are if else, any loop, anything, function, anything. They're curly braces, the scope is those curly braces. As simple as that. With let, you can reassign the value of the variable anytime, but you cannot redeclare the variable more than one time. So over here, let x equal to 1, console log x. We try to use the x again out of this scope, we get a reference error. Difference between var and let, we say var x equal to 10, var x equal to 20. You can do it 1,000 more times, no problem. Let, if you're declared once, you can change value anytime. You can give it any value. If it's an integer initially, you can give it a string, array, object, null, whatever you want. You can't redeclare again. So this will force you to, be a good programmer and only declare a variable once. And const, again, const is, as the name suggests, is for constants. It's not a variable, it's a constant. The value must be assigned to a const. We shouldn't be saying const variable, but again, it's variable is a very commonly used word, loosely used word nowadays, so we'll go ahead with that. So value must be assigned to a const variable at the time of declaration, and it later cannot be reassigned or redeclared. So let, you cannot redeclare. You can give any value you want n number of times. Const cannot be redeclared, cannot be reassigned. So obviously if it's a const, the constant, you can't change a value later. That's the whole point of having constants. So in case of declaring a new array using const variable, you can change the value of an element within the array, but you cannot change the value of the entire array. So we say const a equal to 0, assigns the value 0 to the constant a, and then we try to redeclare and reassign. So const a equal to 1, not allowed. Then we say const b equal to 1 comma 2. So const b, the constant b, is an array. We know that. Simple. We can add and remove values from it. Doing that, the array is still an array. We're not changing it to something else. That is allowed. But you can't reassign anything to it. You can't say b equal to. So a constant, once declared, you can't say b equal to again. As simple as that. Differences between ES5 and ES6. The major difference between ES6 and ES5 is that ES6 syntaxes are shorter compared to ES5. Let's have a look at this. So here are some of the features of ES6. Number 1, arrow functions, object manipulation, template literals using backticks, and module exports and imports. So arrow functions. Arrow functions are the functions where you don't have to use curly brackets, neither type the function keyword. They utilize the new token, which is this arrow symbol using equal to and the greater than sign. So the syntax is like this. So this is the regular syntax of arrow function. In the normal brackets, you have the parameters, then the arrow sign, and in the curly brackets, this is, you can write the statements. The arrow functions can be majorly used in the following cases: return number function, return array function, return number function with parameter, return object function. So let's have a look at those. So return number function. So in ES5, this is a very familiar syntax: function, function name, and return 5. In ES6, all you need is this one line, the normal braces, arrow sign, and 5. No need of the return statement, no need of the curly brackets. When you don't have curly brackets and you just specify a value, or let's say a variable or an expression over here, an expression that will result into a true or a false, any other expression, when you don't have curly brackets, it is implied that whatever is over here has to be returned. Very short, simple, sweet syntax. Return array, again the same syntax over here. You all know this, but in ES6, empty brackets, arrow sign, and just the array. the array will be returned. Similarly, return object. Now, since this is an object, we can also like put the curly brackets into the normal brackets. The curly brackets would then be interpreted as being the curly brackets for the function. We are putting them in normal brackets, and the object will be returned. Return number function with parameter. When you have a parameter, you can specify that. So these brackets for the parameter, again, if you have a parameter, then the brackets are optional. You can also do it without the braces. Radius, arrow sign, and then the expression, which whatever the result is will be returned. Extract object values. So this is a part of object manipulation. So let's say we have variable object1 and it has 4 properties w, x, y, z with values 0, 1, 2, 3. In ES5 we would say, let's say we want to assign each of these values to new variables. So in ES5 we would say where w equal to object1.w, where x equal to object1.x, and so on and so forth. But in ES6 we have this syntax which is called as object destructuring, where you just type in like whichever new variables that you want. So put them in this kind of an object notation and equal to, you can say, object1. So whatever the property names are, so make sure you match the property names w, x, y, z. Make sure the property names are same, and whatever the values are for all those properties in these objects will be assigned to the variables respectively. Okay, you can even emit, let's say you only want w and x and you don't want y and z, that is also fine. You can say wx only in the curly brackets, and only you will get only those two variables. If you have to extract multiple values from ES5, you have to write 3 to 4 lines of code, but with ES6 it can be done in a single line. So yeah, much nicer, simpler syntax. Merging objects. So we have to merge the object using object.assign. So what this does is takes object2 and merges it with object1 and then returns it. So object1 has a and b, and then object2 has c and d. So the resulting object will be a, b, c, d. Okay, if the arguments are swapped, object2 is here, object1 is here, the result that will be returned will be c, d first and then a and b. So we have this object called object with the capital O in JavaScript, and it has a lot of methods for variables and arrays which you can use. And object.assign is a very famous method in ES5 for merging objects. In ES6 we have a much simpler syntax. So you just put in an object notation like this, 3 dots and the variable name, no spaces anywhere. 3 dots and the object name, and you'll get a new object with all the properties of this object, comma, all the properties of this object. Very easy, simple to understand. The spread operator makes merging objects a breeze for the developer, and this is called the spread operator, the 3 dots. Defining an object. In ES5 we needed to define, so let's say we have two variables x and y, we need to make an object, and the object will have properties of similar names. In ES5 the syntax would be the variable name equal to curly brackets x colon x, y colon y, or whatever variable name colon the same variable name. In ES6 just specify the name x comma y. ES6 would understand that okay, we need the property name to be x, and the value for that property name x would be the variable x. If the name of the key and the variable we assign to take the key are same, you can use the shorthand way of ES6. Much simpler, again a nicer syntax. Template literals, the ones with the backticks. So ES6 offers an alternate syntax to define strings known as template literals. This syntax uses backticks. So backtick is on your keyboard in the top left corner, you have escape. So just below the escape, you have the backtick. This syntax uses backticks rather than regular quotes or double quotes. The advantage of this syntax is that it can interpolate variables or expressions using the $curly bracket expression inside the string. So in ES5, let's say we have x and y. Well, actually it should be var x, var y, not const x and const y, because it's ES5. So const x 1, const y, let's say a string y. So we can have value z equal to value of x is, we concatenate, so value of x is 1 and value of y is y. But here we have to concatenate these strings and then get a value. Actually we don't need concatenation, we just need the values in the middle of the string. So much better way in ES6 would be value of x is $x and value of y is $y. So, and put them in backticks, so it would automatically replace this expression with the value and this expression with this value. Much better than unnecessarily doing the string concatenation. Also in this, internally JavaScript has to first convert the non-string types to string and then do the concatenation. So again, this is much better. So ES6 syntax is more readable and it comes up with keyword export default. So we've already seen the module.exports thing in Node.js. So let's see what this default export is also. So this syntax is useful when we export a module by default and we have to import the entire module in our source file. So ES6 also provides us with the ability to export and import multiple variables from a single module file. So in the module file, we can export const a equal to 1, export const b equal to 2, and import them all together like this. So let's say we have a test module.js file and we write these two lines, export const a equal to 1, export const b equal to 2. And when we want to import, so over here we are using the short syntax for creating the object a comma b. So what this will do is directly create the variables a and b for us in the file where we import the test module, where test module equal to a colon 1 b colon 2. And so in ES5 we had to do module.exports equal to test module. So first we create the object, give it the properties and the values, and then using module.exports, which we have seen till now in the Node.js apps we've created, in the module.exports we say .exports equal to the object name. But in ES6 we can just say export default the object name. And while importing, the syntax that we all know is where test module equal to require. So we've done this even in Express or in Node apps, where express equal to require the express module. Where we're doing something similar, where test module equal to require the test module, the path of the test module. For in ES6, much better syntax, import test module from the test module. So no need of require or the equal to anything, just a simple nice syntax, import test module from test module. So set objects are collection of unique values. They ignore the duplication of values collection. These values can be primitive types or object references. So the syntax is very simple. You declare a variable and assign new set, and then you can add values to the set using the .add method, x.add, and then pass in the values. You can pass any kind of value, any type, boolean, number, string, object reference like this. This can be an array also. Arrays are also objects in JavaScript. But the key thing to remember for this is the values have to be unique. Can't add duplicate values, and even if you try to add a duplicate value, it will ignore that. And it is similar to an object, as you can see over here. Async await syntax is a syntactic sugar. That is, it does not introduce any new functionality into the language, but rather introduces a new syntax for using promises. With promises, we take in asynchronous function, register a callback to run once that asynchronous action is completed. But with async await, instead of registering a callback, you can directly await a value. It's like we wait for that asynchronous task to get completed and then move on. So here, if you want to make any function asynchronous, you can just use async in front of it. It looks like procedural code, which is easier for humans to understand. So here we have a simple example. In first section, data is resolved using promise dot then. Later, same code is resolved using async await. So we have this function native promise dinner. So brainstorm dinner, let's say, returns a promise. So we attach a dot then function to it, and the callback of then gets this parameter called meal, which will let us know what we're gonna have for dinner. And inside we say console log, I'm going to make so and so meal for dinner. So a simple promise implementation. Now if you want to do the same thing with this promise using async await, we'll do something like this. Let meal equal to await brainstorm dinner. So when brainstorm dinner promise resolves, the value that is passed as an argument in the callback for the then is automatically assigned to the variable over here. As simple as that. And then you can use it the next line. So this line, so since we have written the await keyword over here, the execution would not go ahead to the next line until and unless this has finished executing. And to be able to use await inside this function has to be async. So only when the function in which the code is wrapped is async, only then you can use await inside it. So a much simpler syntax, also no callback business over here. One more thing, let's say we have two promises which we need to resolve one by one. So let's say we have another, let's say next day breakfast promise. So after the brainstorm dinner resolves, then inside the callback we can do next day breakfast, and then method attached to it and a callback inside that. So that will be a then callback for the dinner and then breakfast, then another callback inside that. So instead of that, over here what we can do is let meal equal to await brainstorm dinner, console log it, then let breakfast equal to await next day breakfast, then console log it. So much cleaner, nicer syntax using async await. Transpilation in Node.js. Some browsers do not support the features of ES6. So under such scenario, you can perform transpilation of codes. Transpilation is the process that transforms the code in a language that has a similar level of abstraction. JavaScript makes use of Babel transpiler to convert ES6 code to ES5. In order to use Babel, you need to install the following packages in your Node module. So first we need Babel core, then we need Babel preset env that contains a set of plugins to convert ES6 features to equivalent ES5. We need Babel register, uses nodes require hook system to compile files when they are loaded. And Babel polyfill includes a custom regenerator runtime and core.js which imitates a full ES6 environment and is intended to be used in an application. So what basically Babel does is, let's say I write all my application code in ES6, but that code needs to be executed in a old browser, a browser which does not support the modern ES6 syntax but supports ES5. Babel will convert all the ES6 code into a ES5 syntax. That's what basically Babel does. And in most of the front-end projects these days, Babel is used. Let's say if it is React or Vue, all of them they use Babel these days. Very famous package. So you can install it using the below command npm install and then name all the Babel modules, space separate. You can check the installation in package.json file. So once it is installed, you can see that in the list of dependencies we have all the packages listed. Once that is done, you can create a Babel RC file. So the file does not have a name but only an extension .babelrc. That's what the file name is. It's a standard file which allows the Babel to perform the required configurations for the mentioned files during the build. So once you have Babel installed and once you write all the code to your application, you can actually build a new JS file from your application, and that JS file will contain the ES5 code, not the ES6 code that you have written. And that ES5 code you can be assured that will run in all the browsers, old and new. So create a .babelrc file in the root of your application directory. We set Babel by passing the package at Babel preset env to perform the required transpilation. So these two lines are enough for Babel to do its magic. Let's look at a demo of creating an API using ES6. For this demo, we'll be using Press, Babel, the transpiler, and the code that we will write will be in ES6 syntax. That syntax will be transpiled by Babel into ES5 syntax. So let's start by creating our application, installing Express. We have the package.json ready. Let's open a folder. So install Express, and then we need to install the Babel packages. Set up the Babel RC file. In the Babel RC, we'll write this object presets array, object sets array. The array has Babel preset env, as simple as that. Then we'll create a start.js. Okay, we have error in this syntax. So first we needed is space over here, and we need the add symbol over. So Babel core, Babel preset env, Babel register and Babel polyfill. Start again. Let's install one by one. Install Babel core first. That's working. Then we install the Babel preset env. That's working as well. Now the Babel register. Let's try again. So in case of errors with installing node modules, delete the node modules directory, and you can, so we already have the package.json. Package.json has all the module names defined. I can just do npm install and it will install all the dependencies, all the modules defined in the package.json. Let's try again. So we were at Babel register, works fine. And last but not the least, Babel polyfill. Let's try this command. So that works. So I did npm install -- save Babel polyfill. So that also means I was using hyphen over here. It should be /. So we made the Babel RC. We have the start.js. Installed all the Babel modules. We have them, all of them in the package.json. Can mention start and def, fine. App.js, simple code in app.js, nothing new for us. But now we are using the ES6 syntax. Import. So earlier, if you remember, in ES5 it was either var or const, mainly const. But now it's only import express from the npm module name, that is express. So much simpler. Server is listening. Create a simple route. We'll have the request response. We will use the response.send. Yeah, is working. ES6 syntax that we have used in this mainly is the import and the arrow functions. We don't have nodemon, but on without that. Actually, let's install dev. We already have nodemon installed globally. Let's run and see how it goes. npm run dev. Server is listening. Great, we got that. Our port number is 4800. Great, API is working. Nice. I hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you.